In the summer of 1777, the American Revolution hung in the balance. 2 years had passed since the first shots were fired at Lexington and Concord. The British Empire still possessed the most powerful army and navy in the world, while the American colonies struggled with shortages, poor training, and uncertainty about their future. Many believed the rebellion would soon collapse. But deep in the forest and rolling hills of New York, a campaign began that would change the course of history forever. The Battle of Saratoga was more than just a military defeat for Britain. It shattered British strategy, inspired the American cause, convinced France to enter the war, and transformed the colonial rebellion into a global conflict. This is the history of how General John Burgoyne marched confidently into New York and ended up surrendering an entire army. By 1777, the British leaders believed they had found a way to crush the rebellion once and for all. The strategy was simple. The colony of New England was considered the heart of the revolution. Cities like Boston had been centers of resistance from the beginning. British planners decided to isolate New England from the rest of the colonies. The plan called for three separate armies to converge on Albany, New York. General John Burgoyne would march south from Canada along Lake Champlain. A second force would move east from the Great Lakes region. Meanwhile, General William Howe would move north from New York City. Together, they would trap the rebels and cut the colonies in half. On paper, it looked brilliant. In reality, it would become one of the Britain's greatest military disasters. The man chosen to lead the campaign was General John Burgoyne, known as Gentleman Johnny. Burgoyne was charismatic, confident, and popular in Britain society. He believed the campaign would be quick and decisive. His army consisted of approximately 8,000 soldiers, including British regulars, German mercenaries known as Hessians, Native American allies, and Canadian supporters. When Burgoyne departed Canada in June 1777, he expected victory. His troops were well trained, his officers were experienced, his confidence was high. Few imagined the difficulties that lay ahead. At first, everything seemed to go according to plan. British forces captured the important American fortress of at Fort Ticonderoga in July 1777. The victory shocked Americans. Many believed the fort was nearly impossible to take. When news reached the colonial, panic spread. Burgoyne appeared unstoppable. British newspapers celebrated the advance. London expected Albany to fall within weeks. Yet beneath the surface, problems were already developing. The wilderness of New York was far harsher than British planners anticipated. Roads barely existed. Dense forest slowed movement. Bridges had to be built. Supplies became increasingly difficult to transport. Every mile south made Burgoyne more vulnerable. As the British army pushed deeper into New York, the situation worsened. American forces cut down trees across roads. Bridges were destroyed. Swamps and forests delayed every movement. What should have taken days often took weeks. Food supplies began running low. Horses died from exhaustion. Soldiers struggled through mud and difficult terrain. Most importantly, Burgoyne discovered that he was largely on his own. General Howe, instead of moving north toward Albany, had chosen to launch a campaign against Philadelphia. The coordination at the heart of Britain's strategy was falling apart. Burgoyne continued advancing, unaware that help would never arrive. Desperate for supplies, Burgoyne sent a force of nearly 800 men toward Birmingham in present-day Vermont. Their mission was to gather food, horses, and equipment. Instead, they walked into a trap. American militia quickly assembled under General John Stark. On August 16, 1777, they attacked. The battle was a disaster for the British. Hundreds of soldiers were killed or captured. The Americans seized weapons and supplies, even birds. Many Native American allies abandoned Burgoyne after the defeat. The loss of Binghamton severely weakened the British army. For the first time, Burgoyne's campaign showed signs of collapse. While Burgoyne struggled, the Americans grew stronger. General Gates took command of the Northern Army. Thousands of militia volunteers arrived from across New England. Farmers, laborers, and ordinary citizens answered the call. Among the American officers was a bold and aggressive commander named Benedict Arnold. At the time, Arnold was considered one of America's most talented battlefield leaders. His courage and energy inspired soldiers wherever he went. By September, American forces occupied strong defensive positions near Saratoga. They were ready to stop Burgoyne's advance. On September 19, 1777, Burgoyne launched an attack against American positions. The big fighting erupted near Freeman's Farm. The battle was fierce and chaotic. British troops repeatedly assaulted American lines. Benedict Arnold aggressively directed counterattacks. For hours, musket fire echoed through the forests. Although the British technically held the battlefield at day's end, their victory came at a terrible cost. Casualties were heavy. The British could not afford such losses. The Americans remained intact and continued blocking the road to Albany. Burgoyne's army was bleeding away. Weeks later, Burgoyne faced a grim reality. His supplies were nearly exhausted. No reinforcements were coming. Time was running out. On October 7, he launched another attack. This battle became known as Bemis Heights. The Americans struck back with incredible determination. Benedict Arnold, despite being relieved of command after disputes with Gates, rode onto the battlefield anyway. Ignoring orders, he charged into combat, leading attacks. Personally, Arnold inspired soldiers across the line. American forces overwhelmed British positions. The British retreat quickly became chaotic. By nightfall, Burgoyne's army had been driven back. The campaign was collapsing. After the defeat at Burmese Heights, Burgoyne withdrew toward Saratoga. American forces surrounded him. Escape routes disappeared. Supplies dwindled to almost nothing. Soldiers were hungry, exhausted, and demoralized. The weather grew colder. Every day strengthened the American position. Burgoyne hoped for rescue. None came. He was trapped. The once spoiled British army that had marched from Canada now faced destruction. On October 17, 1777, General John Burgoyne made a historic decision. He surrendered. Approximately 5,800 British and German troops laid down their arms. It was one of the largest British surrenders in history. Up to that point, American soldiers watched as British troops marched out and stacked their weapons. For the colonies, the victory was extraordinary. The impossible had happened. An entire British army had been defeated and captured. The news spread rapidly across America and Europe. People everywhere realized the rebels might actually win.